Welcome to this watercolor tutorial where we're going to be painting this gingerbread house. If you would like to download this sketch, go to the link below to my description. I'll take you to my website where you can download this. I put a cute little mat board on top of this because I'm going to frame it. Let's get started on our painting. So this right here is my Winsor Newton watercolor paints that I have taken from the tube and put it inside this palette that I got off of Amazon. I have a tapping cloth right here. It's always good to have one. That way you don't have excess water on your page. I also have my two water cups right here. One I use for cool paints and one I use for my warmer paint colors. I also have right here my dryer. I like to use this to speed up the process between layers. These are the brushes that I use. These are the silver black velvet. I have size 12, 4, and 8, and these are the round tip brushes. These two items I use all the time. This is called masking fluid. It acts as a cover. So wherever I put this masking fluid, let it dry, I can paint over top. Can make sure my painting is 100% dry. I can scrape off the masking fluid and that area will be left untouched. So I use this a lot, but make sure to use an old brush because it does get kind of goopy and you'll end up with a broken brush. I also like to use bleed proof white. This is a very highly pigmented white, which will sit on top of any type of color. I'm using this painting as an example. I always like to have painter's tape on hand. I like to paint down my paintings. It's easier to one film and to also just keep everything from moving around and it getting a little messy. It also helps to protect your desk, which you'll see mine is very worn. So it definitely does help with that. To get started with this painting, I'm coming in with some masking fluid and I'm going to put it around my windows and some of the decorations. If you don't have masking fluid, you can honestly just paint around it. You can still paint this painting. But for me, I am going to get the background of the gingerbread house just in one go. And it does take a little bit more time to go around everything. So if you don't have masking fluid and you still want to paint this painting, the only thing I can suggest, or the best thing I can suggest, is just really quickly go around with some water on the areas that you're going to be painting with brown, and then leave, like the windows, for example, any of the little decorations, leave that not wet. Leave it dry. That's a better way of saying it. Leave it dry. And then we can come back to it, and that way you won't have lines and whatnot in your painting as well. It helps with the flow of things. I'm going to come around and do my door. Okay, so I just applied masking fluid right here. Again, you don't have to do this if you don't have masking fluid, just be careful. So I have to just let this dry just a little bit longer, but while this is drying, I want to go ahead and just mix my colors. So I'm going to go with a mixture of like raw umber, possibly a little bit of burnt umber. Oh, where's my size? Here we go. I actually already have some raw umber. It does have a little bit of blue in here as well. So I'm going to bring in my raw umber, which is brown. And then I'm going to water it down because I don't want this house to be too vibrant, I should say. I'm going to add a little bit of cadmium red as well, just a hair. That's a little bit too much red, so I'm going to come in again with a little bit of my brown. There we go. I like that. And I want a decent amount because I want to cover a good chunk of space. Okay, so before I talked about if you didn't have masking fluid, just apply water. I'm actually going to do that exact same technique. So I'm using a very beginner friendly sheet of paper right now. So that just means that it's not going to hold the water as well as long as it would if I used Arches watercolor paper. So I don't want streaks on my page. So I'm going to work fast here. And I'm going to cover my area with some water. Now, when you're putting in water right here to do the wet on wet technique that I'm about to do, the trick here is to make sure you're not putting so much water down that if you were to lift up your sheet of paper, that you would just have drips. You just want there to be a slight shine. Oh, whatever. My masking fluid wasn't dry there. I have to put water on it. I can fix that. And then I'm going to put water all over. And I'm trying to be careful to not go into my roof. I'm also realizing that some of my masking fluid was not dry in some spots, but I will. I'm also dealing with, or I'm going to be dealing with a lot of whites. So I just want to make sure I can keep my whites as clean as possible and not get it all brown from the house shade. Okay, so now that this is wet, I'm gonna want to go a little bit quick here. So I'm gonna come down and just apply this nice brown that I have mixed all over. And then when it comes time to it, I am gonna come underneath my roof in certain areas to apply a little bit more darkness to it. I want my center just to be a hair lighter. And you'll see here, because I have watered down, it's just expanding and it's giving me a really nice light shade and a wash down version or value of brown, which I am loving. I want this to be very soft and airy. Okay, so now with a little bit of a darker brown, I'm going to come in here with my burnt umber and then come underneath my roof. And this is the wet on wet technique that I'm doing when I have a wet surface and I'm applying another wet surface on top, and those two colors just naturally bleed and blend into each other. I'm going to come underneath my little reef in here to have a little bit of shadow coming underneath my roof into the side of my house. Around my little door, I'll have a little bit of darkness. Around my windows. Still making sure I'm leaving plenty of light as well. Underneath my little wreath here, I'll have there a shadow underneath this window. And just let that spread out. Okay, I'm gonna dry this before I can move on to anything else. If you want to make this house bright and vibrant, you can just keep coming in here with a few layers, and that's what I'm going to do a little bit. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to come underneath my roof area right here, and you see how this just sits on top? This is called the wet on dry technique. There's no bleeding and blending of my colors. My color will also be super, super dark. I don't love that harsh line that I now have. So coming in with just a damp brush, I'm going to touch this line with just water, and I'm going to try to blend out this line until it kind of fades and blends into that first layer that we have down. Again, if you're using beginner paper like me, you're going to want to just move a little quicker than you would. Also do sections. You'll notice I did this section and not over here, just because if I was to come in with this dark color all the way around, I would have streaks. And I am just not about that when I'm painting. So I'm definitely working in sections here, taking my time. And now I can come in and do this side really quickly. All right, getting rid of everything on my brush. I'm gonna tap my napkin and I'm gonna come in and just touching this line, absorb, so there's a nice blend. Tapping my napkin here a few times, just getting rid of that dark color that's on my brush. Blend, blend, blend. Okay, I'm gonna dry this again, because if I was to come in and put any other color down, everything would just bleed and blend. So working in sections here, I'm gonna dry this off. I'm happy with how my house now looks, so I'm gonna take off my masking fluid. If you use masking fluid as well, and this is your first time or not really that familiar with it, make sure that your painting is 100% dry before you take this off. Otherwise, you're gonna smudge your painting or you're gonna cause a rip. Also, if you used a dryer directly on the masking fluid as well, just let that dry. There was one time I was painting a picture and I didn't let the masking fluid dry because it was warm from the dryer, and it just tore my painting as well. I've learned a lot from masking fluid, the do's and don'ts. And I'm just using the very tip of my finger now, just peeling it off. This is the most satisfying part of masking fluid. Working in smaller sections, and now that you'll see what I applied the masking fluid, or where I applied my masking fluid, is nice and white. It's just the plain paper. There we go. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is I want to work, I'm trying to think, I'm going to work on my windows. That is what I'm going to do. So when it comes to painting windows, I really like using indigo and just a little bit of gray. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in box by box here. And just using a little bit of water, we can just spread it out so it's nice and light. I'm using the wrong size brush. And then once that color is down, we can just touch the edges with a little bit more pigment and just let that wet on wet do its thing. So there's just a little bit of depth in our windows as well. You can even scoop with a damp brush and lift up. That way you have a highlight as well. So I'm going to do that again. And you'll notice I didn't just do this whole section. I did 2. So I'm coming in with that nice gray color. I'll do 3. How about we'll do 3 in a row? I feel like I have time to paint 3 windows. Get rid of my brush. I'm going in with just straight pigment from the indigo. I'm just going to touch different points. Let that color spread nicely. I'm going to come in with a damp brush and I'm going to scoop up the middle. So I have a little bit of a highlight here. So it just gives a nice reflection in the window. I'm going to do this for all of them. I'll be right back. Okay, I also just did the same thing here for this window. So now that my windows are done, they're all not perfect. They're all different shapes and stuff, and I think that's what makes it really cool. I'm going to let these kind of dry and do its thing, and I'm going to move on to the more like detail parts of it. I think that will be a lot of fun. So these are supposed to be like little candy canes almost, or little lollipops, but I want there to be shadow. I just don't want it to fall flat. So I'm going to come in with a little bit of blue, and I'm just going to shadow around the edges and let that white be nice and clear. Get rid of everything on my brush, just touching that line to break up any harshness. I can even come in with a little bit more, especially right here towards the edges. I can come in with a little bit more pigment. Just kind of what we did with the window, just so that this little candy cane part that I'm going to paint, it just isn't flat. I want there to be some depth and curve to the parts that I'm going to be decorating. I'm going to roll up my sleeves here. I typically like to, not that I like to do it, I typically smudge my paintings. And roll up my sleeves. Get rid of everything on my brush, so it's just water, touching this harsh line with some water. Blend, 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 coming with a little bit more pigment, touching that line. That did not blend like I want it to, so I'm going to come in with a little bit of water and blend it out. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to come in and do the same over here. I'm mostly focusing on the edges. Get rid of everything on my brush and just blend this out, leaving my center. And same right in here, coming along my edges. I'm doing 2 at the same time right here. But if you're going slow, just do 1 at a time. And I'm going to blend this out with some water. And then these little parts right here, they're also my little candy canes. So I'm going to come in to this middle section, kind of looks like a little sandwich. This bigger one right in here. Get rid of everything on my brush, blend it out. You'll also see how fast I'm going. I'm just not putting so much attention to detail here. This is supposed to be a very freeing painting. I think the less imperfect it will look, the better it will look. Not that I'm going for like the sloppy look, but you know what I mean. I feel like it's supposed to have not the best straight lines and everything. So also around this curve, actually around the door frame, we're going to put like a really cute candy cane looking door frame. So I'm going to do the same. I'm doing the shadow so that this just looks curved and it doesn't just look flat. So I'm blending out that line, trying to leave my center as white as possible If you're finding that your blue is creeping into your middle soup like a lot, you probably just have too much water on your brush and you don't have that much control when you actually go in to putting down those dark colors. What you can do is obviously just tap your napkin to absorb some of that color before you touch your page, or just come in with a damp brush, tap your napkin, and then you can scoop out if you have a lot of color in the middle and it's just turning blue. So if I'm putting my two colors on the edge, let's just say you accidentally have the two colors meet in the middle, get rid of everything on your brush. You're going to tap your napkin and then you can literally scoop and lift up your color that way as well. Okay, so I have done all of the shadows. Nope, I have not. Right here. This is again. Right in here. I've almost done all the, there we go. And there we go. Okay, cool. Now we have all the candy canes. I'm gonna let it dry and I'm gonna jump around a little bit more. So I'm gonna come in and I am going to paint the shadows here since we're working with white anyway. And so I just mixed up that same grayish bluish color, blue-gray, and I'm gonna come along now and I'm gonna shadow different points. And that's kind of what we do when it comes to working with snow and white objects. We paint the shadows and leave lots of white space, which is just the paper to kind of shine through to make it look and appear as though there's white. So you'll see here I'm just applying a really nice wash of blue-gray. If you're finding here that it's like really black, just go put more water into your palette with that color and always start light. That is my #1 advice here when working with these shadow colors. If you go too dark, you won't be able to layer and kind of take it back. So always just start with your lightest layer. You can always add a little bit more darkness, a little bit more blue and gray to it as you go. So just stick with it and just go nice and light, okay? So I'm just coming around different points. And my goal is here as well, because I have a sketch here. And it's not from pencil, it's from ink. I can't erase it. I do want to hide this line as well. So I am pretty much outlining a little bit. I'm also leaving some gaps here from my ink marks. I'm gonna come around my edges here, just doing different points. I'm coming in the middle of the snow in some areas. And then for the little dripping snowflakes, or what is this called? Not snowflakes. What would this be called? Melting snow? Well, technically it's supposed to be icing since it's the gingerbread house. You know what I mean. The little icicles. That's what it's called. The little icicles. I'm not going to completely cover in all of the icicles. I want there to be lots of white space as well, but just coming in a little bit here and there to give the illusion of a nice shadow. We can even come in different areas with a second layer to make it stand out. So this would be my second layer, and that's what I talked about before. We can always come in with more layers here, but you can't really lift it up once you put it down. Especially when it comes to like blacks, it's very hard to shadow with. I'm gonna blend out this harsh line with some water, and then you can just keep going until you feel like you're happy with your shadow. I have a little bit up here of some snow. Again, trying to leave some white space, not completely cover it. So just blending with some water here. Touching the outer corners so it's just a hair darker than the rest. Okay, I'm feeling pretty happy about this little snow situation that I got going on as well. Okay, So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to leave this bottom part until the end. This is going to be some snow as well. I'm going to come in now and I'm going to fill in my little window panes with some brown. So this is called the wet on dry technique right here. And because my house is already dry, if I was to come in over my line a little bit onto this side, it would automatically be darker. And that's why I left my little window pane nice and open. I'm going to come in. So I'm just painting all of it brown. I'm going to come in at the end with some bleed proof white for my snow. So I'm not going to focus too much on the little drips right here. And I just realized I didn't shadow these two, so I'm going to leave it. Okay, and then when this is still dry, I can come in underneath and just touch around different spots and just kind of create a nice shadow. I can also lift certain areas for a highlight, just so that I can get different shades of brown and just some dimension here as well. I'm going to freehand and just come around this area. Okay, now that I'm done with my little window pane, again, I'm coming back to it. I'm going to work on my door. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to do a nice bright red door. And I'm going to do, I was going to do all of it. No, I'm going to do section by section. So I'm going to do this big door right in here. And then I'll come around and do the other two parts when this is dry. It's all about the sections, taking your time. That way it doesn't look like one big blob. Okay, again, I'm going to let that dry. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start just working on kind of decorating this. I'm just going to scoop up right here just so there's a little bit of a highlight. Yeah, so now that I already have the shadows down, I can come in and just start painting like little lines. So I'm going to come in and decorate this part in here with a nice green. I use sap green for this. Make sure to tap your napkin so you don't have too much water. And you can decorate this however you like. I'm going to do some nice swirly lines over here. I'm going to do some nice lines over here. I don't love how this one is sitting, so I'm just going to come in and kind of just fix my lines a little bit. Okay. And then the next one I'm going to do is up here. I'll do some green. So this is just hooker's green and sap green. And I'm going to do little lines to look like little candies. And you can also Google, that's kind of what I did. I Googled different types of candies so you can kind of make up, or just make up your own shapes. But I know that there's some traditional Christmas candy I wanted to go with here. When you go to the restaurant, you have those peppermint candies. I wanted that in here. I'm gonna do some nice gumballs for in here. I'm gonna come in with some nice green gumball, and I'm doing like a loose little oval with some green. And then for the door, I'm gonna come into another section with just like a little bit of a purple undertone to it. So it's just a little different and a little darker. And that's the border, or I guess the frame of the door, you could say. Scoop up for a highlight in different areas. And then for the little window part, I'm just going to come in with another shade of red. I like how the red looks. I feel like it's a very statement door. Okay, and now I can decorate around the door as well. So I'm just going to do like little candy cane. Okay, this door frame part is not dry, so I'm just going to let this dry. Otherwise, I'm going to have red streaks everywhere. Okay, now I'm going to come back in with a little bit more red. I think I'm going to do red and green for this door part. So I'm coming in at an angle using the very tip of my brush. I'm also anchoring my pinky so that I don't allow myself to put in a ton of pressure. I want this to be nice and light. Yeah, I'll do like a little green line very, very, very close to my red. Again, you can decorate your little gingerbread house however you please. This technique is called the wet on dry section. This is when you're painting wet paint onto a dry surface. This is how you create details and dimension in your painting. There's no bleeding and blending of your colors. I'm going to come in and just do some more lines in this one. I don't know, just do something different. I didn't do the green up here. Oh, that's because I didn't do the shadow. Oh well. I didn't do the shadow over here. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to come in with that sap green, hooker's green, and I'm going to fill out this little area here where it has some leaves. I feel like this is really dark, so I'm going to get rid of everything on my brush and just tap to lift up for a highlight. And then there's a section on the other side. You guys, it's starting to come together and look like a little gingerbread house. These paintings, it's hard to teach the tutorial for them because I feel like there's so much creative, like everybody's so creative. So I like painting exactly what I have, or showing you guys exactly how I paint too with a painting like this. Kind of tricky because I don't want to take away from your creativity. I think that's what I'm trying to say. So yeah, you don't have to decorate completely how I'm doing it. All right, so for the bow, I'm going to come in. I'm going to work in section here. So I'm going to do this part of my bow. I'm going to leave that center nice and white and come back to it. I'm going to get rid of everything on my brush and lift up for a highlight. I have another bow down here. Just make sure your leaves are dry. I'm leaving my center nice and untouched. Get rid of everything on my brush. I'm going to scoop for a highlight. What else is going to be, I'm just going to do this part right here. Nice and red. I'm going to dry these bows so I can do my centers. And then with a little bit of purple, I'm just going to come in and just shadow a little bit. I don't love how flat these bows are looking, so I'm just going to come in and just do like a little bit of a shadow towards my creases here with my bows, just to give it a little bit of life. And then I'm going to dry it. And then I'll come with a little bit more red. Hopefully make this area pop a little bit, or at least this bow pop. Okay, cute. I'm gonna come in with a little bit more green in here, fill out this little area so there's not that much white space going on. Okie dokie. Looking around, I'm gonna come in with a little bit of brown and I'm gonna fill out my chimney. I'm going to scoop up the middle. I'm going to come in with a little bit of that darker brown towards my edges and blend out. Yeah, I like that. And then I'm going to dry this just so I can move on. And I'm going to come underneath this little part right in here. and come right under. There we go. Okay, so to really just pull this whole thing together, there's just two things that I need to do. Or I think there's around two things I have to do. Three things. So I'm going to come in and finish these little candies and do the same thing. I have to come in with my brown, not my brown, my blue-gray color. Leave my center nice and open for a highlight, and I have to let this dry. And then I'll come in and decorate this. And then these two will be complete. So starting from my center, I'm going to come in and start to get larger as it comes towards the edges here. And that's the same little peppermint candies that are super popular that I was talking about, that I'm trying to paint. And you're going in like a diagonal motion. Oh, this is tricky. I tried my best. That was hard. I think we just need, oh, I don't know if I ruined it. Shoot. Oh well, try my best. That was hard. I'm gonna do the same on the other side. So starting nice and thin, coming out towards my edges. There we go. I'm doing it better on this side. Now that I learned what I didn't like on the other side. That's usually how it always works, right? Ooh. Honestly, this kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you've ever played the Candy Crush game, like the board game for kids. It's just so colorful and festive. I feel like I need one more like right here. Okay, so now that I've finished with this part, I need to come in and just do the trees. So again, using the sap color and this Hooker's green color, I'm going to come in, I'll show you how to layer some trees. So for the trees, I'm going to come in and kind of follow the direction and just flicking out of a pine tree. So it's nice and skinny towards the top, and then it eventually just gets nice and larger. I don't like how this one is off-centered, so I'm just going to make my own little line right here. Totally disregard my own sketch. Okay, and then while this is still wet, I can come in with like darker shades as well. I just mix a little bit of indigo, and I can touch around different spots. I can even get rid of everything on my brush. I can scoop different areas for a nice highlight. This one's a lot of fun. And then there's 4 little leaves, or trees, I should say. And I'm going to do a couple layers for these just to really just make them pop. Coming in with darker greens right in here. So once we're done with this, underneath it's a big pile of snow that we just have to do. And then honestly, you can just take some time just to be super creative. Part of me is like, do I do little gumdrops on the roof? I think that would be really cool. Yeah, just really have fun with this. Make it your own. I'm going to come in with a little bit of, not masking fluid, sorry, bleed proof white. And do some things with that. Okay, I'm going to come in with a second layer now that this one is drier. And just coming in, doing some flicks for some shadows. Making sure I'm still leaving that first layer to shine through. Not completely covering it, just adding a little bit of texture here in some areas. And then while this is drying, I can come in and add a little bit of shadow underneath. I'm just gonna dry it really quick. So again, coming in with that little blue gray color from before with a ton of water. We're gonna come underneath our trees, shadow coming in towards underneath our stairs and shadow. Again, we want to make sure that we're leaving nice white space. We don't want to completely cover everything. We can even add a little bit of purple in here, again, just to make it darker in some spots instead of just using black. If you use a lot of black, it just kind of dulls your painting a little bit. I definitely try to avoid painting with that. I'm going to come in towards my bottom and just shadow, using some water here to blend out my harsh lines. And I'm going to dry it. And I'm just going to do another layer just underneath certain areas just to make it pop. Oh, my heat just turned on. I don't know if you heard that. It's pretty loud. I'm right next to my furnace room, so I get all types of noises when I'm painting. In the summer, I get my air conditioning booming. In the winter, I get my heat turning on and off. Okay. So yeah, like I said before, you guys can really just make this your own. You can come in and add a little shadows to more areas if you need to make certain things pop, like I am right here. We can also come in and you can add like little gumdrops. You can even do different types of decorations, little designs. So I'm gonna come in with my bleed proof white, and I'm gonna do some really fun gingerbread designs. Part of me is a little worried that I'm gonna ruin it, but whatever. We live and we learn. So I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna add some fun little traditional decorations. And there is part of me that just wants to add a little bit of snow to some areas. I'm coming in with my bleed proof white. And I told you I was gonna do this. I was gonna come in and just add some little decals here. I love this bleed proof white. It sits on top of all of my dark colors. I'm putting some snow on my door. I can even put some fun designs on my door frame. See, this is where I get nervous. Oh. Honestly, I have no plan. I'm just making little designs and dots everywhere. I feel like gingerbread houses are super popular right now on social media. I'm seeing the coolest designs. People are decorating all of their kitchens. I don't know, it's really fun to see what people can come up with. They're very creative. Guys, I don't know. I'm just having fun with this. Trying to make my own designs. Ay, ay, ay. I feel like I want to do something fun on the side of my house. Oh, let me think about this. I feel like this was a missed opportunity to put like candy canes towards the side of my house. And now I have to settle with polka dots. I'm not happy about it. But anyway, like I said, you guys can get as creative as you want. Okay, I think I'm gonna stop now. It's so hard when to know when to stop. I'm gonna stop. I'm having too much fun. Anyway, I hope they, oh, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna add just like a little bit of definition here on this little bow area. I feel like it's just a little flat. Okay, so I hope that you guys had fun just kind of messing around, painting a fun traditional gingerbread house. I'm gonna add a little bit of detail down here. Yeah, please like and subscribe to my video. Check out my other videos that I have on my channel. I look forward to painting with you guys soon. Happy painting.